Now let's practice a couple of problems. So to find the slope of a line from a graph, again, we want to look at how far does the rise change compared to the run. So in this one, it looks like I'm traveling from a -5 up to a -3. So that's a change, a positive change, as we're going from left to right, of 2. And then looking at the run, I'm going to change from -2 to +4. So that's a change of 6, giving me a reduced slope of 1/3. And you do always want to reduce your slope to lowest terms, just like you would with any other fraction. In this next example, I have a horizontal line, meaning that the change in the vertical, although the horizontal may change going from a -3 all the way up to a +2, the vertical, the top number, doesn't change. It's 0. And in this case, I'm changing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the horizontal. So this line has a slope of 0. Finding that change with points, I'm going to put the change in y, so these are my y's, over the change in x. So y1 is a -6 minus a -2, and that's going to go over -2 minus 6. Well, that turns into a -6 plus 2, giving me -4, and -2 minus 6 is -8. Reducing this fraction, I find a positive slope of 1/2. Checking these 2 points, my change in y is -3 minus 5. My change in x, -1 minus a -1. -3 minus 5 gives me a -8. This is going to become -1 plus 1, which is 0. So these 2 points, and as you can see this, their x values stay the same, so this point would end up making a vertical line. So its slope is undefined. Now sometimes you'll be asked to find the slope where the points that you're given are not whole numbers. They can be fractions, they can be decimals. So let's look at an example of that. Here's my x1, y1, x2, y2 again. So looking at my change in y, I have 1/2 minus 3/2 over 2/3 minus 4/3. Well, 1/2 take away 2/2 gives me a -2/2, otherwise known as -1. And in the denominator, I have 2/3 take away 4/3, which is going to be a -2/3. Then remembering what you know about division with fractions, the first fraction, now known as -1, is going to get copied. The second fraction turns into its reciprocal. And we end up with the problem -1 times -3/2. The copy dot flip. The two negatives will cancel each other out. And my final answer is a slope of 3/2. Now let's graph a couple of lines given a point and their slope. So what we're going to do with that is use the point that they give us to determine where to start, and then rising and running, we'll find some other points that we can use for the connect the dots. So first I'm going to start at the point 1, -3, which is this point right here. Then it says I should rise 1, run 2. So if I go up 1 over 2, my next point is going to be right here. And then I do that again, up 1 over 2. My third point is right here. I have 3 points, which is enough to graph a line. So play and connect the dots. I get this line right here. This next problem says that I'm to start at 0, 2. So that's going to be the point right here, the y-intercept. And this one has a slope of -3. And just like with any whole number, it is a fraction whose denominator is a 1. So in this case, I'm being told, starting from this point, to rise a -3, which means to go down 3 and then over 1. So here's my second point. And then I'll go down 3 again and over 1 again. So there's my third point. Then with connect the dots, I get that line.